I'm Joanne Johnson. So what happened here is there's currently a strike that is taking place today. They're trying to back down the vote for CSU's tentative agreement, which is far from what we asked for. We asked for a 12% for our lecturer and tenure faculty, and we also agreed to do this because CSU, the tentative agreement is also not going to change the fact that we're still in the middle of a tuition hike. There's still only one.
What should the union do about that tuition? What should the union do about that tuition hike?
I think the union should continue striking if needed, because there are many students who either don't qualify for financial aid or lost their grant eligibility, or they've been working at least more than one job to support themselves through school.
So you're saying that they should not have that increase. It should be free. It used to be free at San Francisco State.
Oh, really?
Yes, $72 a year semester.
Wow.
So it's been privatized, corporatized. How many these regents, trustees? They make a lot of money. They're probably rich people. So what's the union going to do? Is there going to be a vote, or you're striking here today?
Well, we just ended the strike just a few minutes ago, actually. From what I heard, the CFA voting is open right now, and we're voting no for a tentative agreement because the payment to our tenure faculty is 5%, and we've demanded 10%.
Well, my name is Anthony Ponke, faculty in international relations here, and political chair for the union.
And what's happening today?
Well, we're here showing opposition to the tentative agreement. So our union had negotiated a tentative agreement, and we're showing opposition to it because we had planned a whole week of action. And a lot of us here had been planning on actions here at the campus and different campuses around the area, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so it took us by surprise that our leadership had decided to conclude and actually negotiate something at the end of Monday. And so we've seen details from the agreement. We're waiting for more details to come out, but we want more. We think we can do better.
Why did they capitulate?
It's a good question. We have some people here who have been working on negotiations, who've been on the bargaining committee. There's a lot of potential. One reason maybe I don't know if they didn't think we could have got anything better. There is some change. Like I believe there's some movement on lecturer pay, which is positive. Some movement also on retroactive pay for last year, which I believe was included. But I mean, it's falls short of what we were ultimately hoping for.
And this 5% increase the following years depend on the legislature, and there's a budget deficit in California, massive budget deficit. Are you concerned there isn't going to be any?
That's, I think, a widespread concern of a lot of us here that we won't get that 5%. So a lot of people say this is a 10% raise, but really we're skeptical of that because exactly what you said, like we don't know if that's next 5% it's contingent, right? So it's not guaranteed. We don't know what's going to happen with that. So we need guaranteed money, and everybody does. Everybody in the union, and not just the fact we have faculty, we have lecturer faculty, we have librarians, counselors. This is something that we need to all be on board with. We all need to benefit, and right now we're not.
And do you think it's going to be voted down?
That's another good question. So at this campus, I think we've had a lot of. I think here we're going to vote it down. Other campuses, I'm not sure. So we're going to have meetings going forward. I'm not sure if it's next week or 2 weeks. We're going to have some kind of contract to actually vote on. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking to people around the whole state to see if we can get people to vote no.
And this is the first statewide strike of CSU. The graduate students who are here are also organizing a union. The attack on public education, privatization, corporatization of education, the corruption scandals at CSU, is that really being addressed by the union?
Yeah, that's something that we're definitely looking into. We're definitely doing that kind of work. I mean, especially at this chapter. This chapter, we're very much looking at the reserves. We're looking at how they're being invested. We're looking at the companies that are benefiting from our money, often without us really knowing what's going on. So this is something that we are actively looking into. The union, at least in our chapter, we're definitely looking into. And so we're going to be have one-pagers. We're going to have press releases. This is going to be something is a product that we're working on.
And during the 68th strike, which I was a member of, there was a lot of education going on every day during that strike. Who are the trustees? Where's the money?
Yeah.
Who do they represent? You think that's the kind of thing that's needed now?
Yeah, I think so. I agree. Totally. I agree. Yeah, that's something else that we're putting together, different kinds of power mapping, and we are definitely looking into that to identify who's doing what to who. Yeah, I think people are getting away with a lot, and even posting it online. Posting online, or they're, you can go online and search up different representatives and so on, and doing things.
They're not even a labor representative on the board of trustees.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all corporate people.
Yeah. Right. So that's something that, another thing that we have our homework to do. So.
And Governor Newsom, where does he stand on this? Because he appoints these people, they're his board, Brown.
He's there. I think we need to put more pressure on the governor. We need to interact with the governor. Yeah, exactly. Like, he's involved. In terms of what I've seen, I haven't seen much actual response from the governor. We've had a lot of decent response, a lot of engagement from city people in San Francisco. We helped mobilize one of the pickets that we helped organize here was in Hayward. We had the mayor there, city council people there involved and very supportive. Different state representatives have been very supportive.
I guess the governor's running for president.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he's debating DeSantis, so he doesn't have time. But we are. I mean, this next year we will be engaging his office and others in Sacramento to deal with this. So.
Faculty, but as students, we feel that it's very disingenuous for the CSUs to be not only raising the students' tuition over the next 5 years by about 30-something%, but also cutting down the faculty's not only are they laying them off, but they're also not giving them the wages that match inflation. So that means that faculty aren't making a living wage here in San Francisco and even across the whole CSU system, which is all of California.
And why is that? California has 180 billionaires. There's a lot of wealth here. Why are students starving and not being able to have a place to live and that kind of going hungry?
Well, I can't definitely point out a specific source, but definitely has to do with people not giving students and people in need what they deserve, because education is incredibly important, especially in this day and age where you have to be overqualified to even get a job as a younger person. So
I think it has to do with capitalism.
Perhaps.
Other countries have free public education. They pay students to go to college in other countries.
Definitely. Yeah, I wish we had that here, but for now, striking is our best way to get to that point.
And are students supporting the strike?
Yes, of course, because teachers, their working conditions are our learning conditions. If a teacher isn't happy, you can feel that in the classroom, and if a teacher is struggling, you can feel that in their teaching.
What's your name?
I go by Elliot.
What's your name?
I'm Ali Nurzad.
And what's going on here today?
What's going on here is SF State faculty and faculty from other CSUs nearby are coming out to show their support for their original contract demands, for the contract they've been fighting for months now, and in opposition to the tentative agreement that does not hold faithful to a lot of the demands that they've been fighting for several months, that they're willing to go on a week-long strike for, that now the bargaining team is not standing for anymore.
Do you think the bargaining team should be recalled?
I think that in CFA, the bargaining team should be accountable to the membership. As I know it now, the way it works, the bargaining team is not directly accountable to the membership. I think they should be directly accountable to the rank and file of this union. I think within the union that the rank and file should have as much control as possible, and it's clear right now with what's happening that if leadership does not trust the rank and file, that the union, it's got a lot more to work on than just this contract fight. So in my perspective, I think that as a student that wants to see his CFA strong and representing the workers and the faculty that I love so much, I think I don't want to comment on whether the bargaining team should be recalled, but they should be democratically accountable, and I support what the rank file of the union have to say on the matter.
Okay, thanks.
Of course.
I'm James Martell. I'm the former chapter president of the CFA San Francisco State chapter, and I am on the executive board right now and a professor of political science.
And today is it Wildcat strike? What's going on here today?
It's not exactly a Wildcat strike, but it's a Wildcat strike in spirit at least, because we are organizing against our own leadership for prematurely ending the contract negotiations and giving us a fairly mediocre contract instead of a much more powerful contract that we could have had if we just kept striking.
And why did they cave?
I think that in a way, I think they're just like used to being like a top-down union. It's kind of the culture of the place, and we did introduce open bargaining this year for the first time, which was a real game changer. And I think they just got scared of our power and kind of made a deal.
And California is a rich state, 180 billionaires. The students are suffering. The faculty can't, adjuncts living in cars. I mean, it seems like it's really atrocious conditions for the faculty and the students.
It is, and the irony of all this is that the CSU is sitting on $14 billion, and they put away $1 billion in profit a year. I always say that the CSU is now a private corporation with a side gig as a public university, and they're increasingly uninterested in education.
And this whole issue of the attack on public education, not just here at CSU and state, but also UC, community colleges. It seems like there's no challenge from the legislature. The legislature has seen the corruption at CSU, nothing done about it. These chancellors are making a lot of money. They get golden parachutes. I mean, it seems like there's a real structural problem with the attack on public education.
There is. I mean, I think basically they've given up on the public sector entirely. They don't think of it as a good investment. They think of it as an investment, and if you think of it that way, you're thinking in capitalist terms, and that's not what public education is about. This place should be free. They raised student tuition by 30% over the next 6 years. People can't afford this already, so they're just going to put us into like this death spiral. They just don't care about public education anymore. Ironically, even from a capitalist perspective, this is an amazing investment. They put a little bit of money into these students, they go out, they make, they have great careers, but they don't think that way. They just think all this short-term, profit-oriented. It's as if they had stockholders, even though they don't.
And should this bargaining committee be recalled? It seems that they really have betrayed a lot of demands. The 5% you were supposed to get next year is dependent on the legislature. There's a big budget deficit in California.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about actually a pay cut.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, when we started with open bargaining, it was wonderful. They were really cool. At one point, the administrators came and they freaked out at how many people were in the room, and they said, "Is this going to be this many people?" And one of the leaders of the bargaining team said, "No, there might be up to 30,000 people because everyone on the membership is on the bargaining team." That was beautiful, but unfortunately, over time, it got more and more restricted. So by the end, they weren't bargaining. It wasn't open bargaining anymore. And
so who closed the bargaining?
A tiny handful of the leadership.
And who is that?
I think probably Kevin Weir, who's like the head of the bargaining team, and maybe a few other people. It was a small handful of people. They made a deal, and then they tried to sell it to us, and we're not having it.
Should they be recalled?
I could see an argument for that. I could see an argument for that. But I'm not so much worried about them. I'm just worried. I think what we should do is change the internal structure of the union so we have direct election of bargaining team members and the president and all that, and sort of make it a more democratic institution. And
wouldn't a recall do that?
A recall might help do that, but I think we should also change the
structure
of the union. Yeah.
And the issue of the increase, the 6% increase, that wasn't an issue in the strike. Was it? I mean, the union didn't say we demand that there not be an 6% increase in the student fees.
Right. No, we weren't allowed to negotiate that because that wasn't in the initial sunlight inquiry. So you're not allowed to add new things when you're already in bargaining. So that happened afterwards. But I would like to see very much so that in the future that we actually put that into the contract, because I think if the students can't come here, we can't teach. And at this campus, they fired 350 lecturers because of enrollment issues. So if they're going to make the enrollment crisis worse, then that's not helping. So
are they going to get their jobs back as a result of this contract?
I don't think so. No.
So they basically abandoned these people. They're gone.
Yeah, they've abandoned. We used to have 1,500 faculty. Now we have 1,200. Yeah, it was rough, and all of our classes are huge now, and there's the students can't get into any electives, and it's terrible.
So it's the downsizing at San Francisco State and the CSU system.
Yes, and honestly, I think in some ways we're being punished for being one of the most out there campuses, one of the best organized campuses. So I think that it's not a coincidence that we're the ones that suffered the most and had this huge cut.
And the union has been supporting the Democrats, Gavin Newsom. There are 180 billionaires in California.
Yes.
They don't talk about a billionaire's tax to pay for students.
No.
I mean, it seemed when I was going here at $68, $72 a semester. They're not even raising that, are they?
Well, I'll tell you, this is only a rumor. I don't know if this is true, but the rumor is that the Democrats, and especially Gavin Newsom, reached out and created this bad deal because they wanted to create labor peace so they could focus on their primaries and all their stuff. They've never been a friend of labor, and they continue not to be a friend of labor.
You think there should be a labor party?
Absolutely. I think like people in the labor movement should run for offices, and then you don't have to convince them to do anything. They already know what to do. I think we need to reach out more to City College, because they've actually, one of the reasons that we're having an enrollment crisis is because City College their enrollment has gone down so much, and that is because of the administration and the state attacking them for their left-wing politics and the way that they've been a community college and not a junior college. So they're really trying to attack them even worse now. They're trying to get rid of their accreditation. So they're even more under the gun than we are. So
Supervisor Mandelman, who was in favor of privatizing the college,
yes.
selling off Babel Reservoir, now he's saying he wants an explanation about what's going on in the college. He used to be on the board of trustees, and he voted for privatization. He voted for the cutback.
Exactly. I'm not surprised by any of that stuff. They don't think in terms of public anymore. It's all private. It's all about money and privatization. And a university like the community college, San Francisco Community College, is like one of the most amazing community colleges in the country. It's like a model for what a community college could be. It is truly a college for the community. They have outreach in the Chinese community, and the queer community, and the Latino community. So, that's what a community college should be.
If you have actions next week, you should reach out to them. And
yeah, we should. Yeah, it's us and them really. We're the public universities. I guess UCSF, but they're kind of fancy, and they get.
This is the working class.
Yeah, this is the working class. We're the working class universities, exactly.
And do you think race has anything to do with it? I mean,
yes, no, 100%. This is a very diverse campus. The CSU in general is very diverse. A lot of black and brown students, and I think that's one of the reasons they don't want to give us any money.
If it was all white, it would be a different story.
Oh yeah. All white works very well. Yeah, white people are doing fine, I've noticed.
I'm Will Clark. I'm a faculty member here and a member of the union, and we're here to rally and keep our strike support for a better contract, and to critique some of the tentative agreement that we got, and to mobilize us to continue to fight for a better, fair contract for our lecturer faculty, for our tenure track faculty, for our counselors who felt really left out of this contract, and for all the other members of the community that don't feel like this is actually going to help them in the long run, based on the demands that we had, which were much greater than the ones that are in the tentative agreement that we have.
Were you shocked about the cave-in of the leadership?
Yeah, that was happening the first day. We were ready for 5 days. We had mobilized for a 5-day strike. And we had people worked really hard to get things working on each of those days. And we were shocked also because the state independent outside review board looked at our demands, and they said 7% raises were a good compromise position, and the raises that the tentative agreement had were 5%. So I was shocked by that.
And the 5% next year is dependent on the legislature. There's a big budget deficit.
There's a big budget deficit. The 5% would start in the summer, in July, but it's dependent on the budget, and every time there's been a dependency clause like that, we haven't got the raise.
And the union doesn't really raise the issue of the billionaires in California, the massive wealth in California, why it's not going to public education. Right. I mean, are you concerned about that?
Of course I am. Where are our taxpayer dollars going? We have the capacity to fund so much more than we fund. And that's true for K through 12. Oakland Public Schools are in crisis. Many public schools across the state are in crisis. And we have the money, it's just we're not tapping the resource, and we're not making sure that the public schools that we have, which are one of our best investments, are things that we can keep serving for the future. And that's true at all the Cal States, and it's true at all the public schools.
And the union has been active supporting Gavin Newsom, the Democratic legislature.
The statewide has, yeah.
Locally, I mean, the local politicians. Mm-hmm. You think that served you well?
I don't know if I have a comment about that, actually. It's not something that... I think that what we are trying to build here is something that's coming from us, the rank and file members, and we're working really hard with community members about community needs, and that's a little bit different, and sometimes they coincide and sometimes they don't. But what I think this has shown is the fact that community involvement is necessary for any of these larger political movements, and what failed on Monday was that community involvement. So the people who made the decision on Monday to reach a tentative agreement were a few people, and they didn't have contact with the membership of the union, and they made a unilateral decision. And that's something that I think we can critique.
Should they be recalled?
I think there's a different process for our internal...
I mean, do they belong on the negotiating committee after what they did?
That's something that we all have to decide, and that's not something I can say, but it's something...
your personal opinion?
I would like us to have better advocates by our bargaining team. So that could look like a lot of different things.
And San Francisco State has a long history fighting for open admissions. Ethnic studies started at this school. At one time, it was $72 a semester to go here.
Those times are gone.
But you think you should be free for all students?
We can fund it. It's a choice to not fund it, and the state has divested from public education for as long as I've been in public education, which is my whole life actually, and it's really sad. Like, we used to, when I was in public schools, we used to have art classes. I'm pretty sure those are gone. My mom teaches in public schools, and the burden on her is just egregious. Like, she works every night, all day, and it's terrible. And it's extracting so much from literally the students, from the faculty across the board, and it's not serving the populace. And I think that's a choice that we should reject.
Marla Lowenthal.
Okay, and what's going on here today?
Today, the teachers and staff are trying to fight for a living wage. And what they're offering us is absolutely ridiculous. I've taught at many schools, and this is the worst salary of any school I've ever taught at. And this is really pathetic. And just learning from some of my colleagues today that they're even making worse than I am. And that's
living in San Francisco. I mean, the cost of living,
cost
housing.
of living is ridiculous. Cost of living is outlandish. And they're not giving us a living wage. 5%, forget the cost of living. I mean, you can't live off this. This is seriously, other schools, I'm making $5,000 more than I make here. Same material, same class, same number of hours. And this is horrible the way. Plus the number of students here is horrible. And then I just found out today that they don't have services to support them. We all thought they had counseling services. So we have a kid who's got a problem, or so they don't even have counseling services. And we've got a lot of kids who have. Yeah.
9 counselors for 23,000 students?
Yeah, and they were pushing to have one counselor for 1,500 students. This is outlandish. I mean, I didn't know that. We all have kids who've got emotional problems. I mean, all of us have kids who need help. And we kept sending them over to counseling services. Now we learned that there aren't any. And we've sort of I've tried to help my students, and we keep hearing the kids coming out of COVID. Well, we're getting them as freshmen, sophomores, and they do need help.
Well, what's the disconnect? Because you were going to have a 5-day strike. Apparently they caved in on what your demands were, and one of the issues was 5% increase. They tied that to the state legislature, whether you get increased money. There's a deficit now, may end up in a pay cut. What's going on?
Well, I think that the union is trying to do for everybody, but the union, I don't know, is that connected with their constituents. Certainly not here. That may be different in other places where the cost of living is lower, where there aren't as many faculty, where the issues may be not so intense.
The local chapter the leaders are right on it. It's the board that stepped in and facilitated this so-called tentative agreement on Monday, and without consulting any of the local leadership that we understand.
So this was a unilateral decision
It seems like that. We don't know who was in the room. We're trying to find out who was in the room, and we just don't know that. So we're at an information finding stage, but basically speaking, overall the constituency here, and we're hearing at several other campuses, are not happy with the tentative agreement. It doesn't really make changes, especially for adjuncts like myself. And
how long have you been an adjunct?
6 years, 6.5 years.
And trying to survive as an adjunct?
Well, I've been an adjunct 30 years, but I've been 6.5 years here. And previously I taught at like 3 different universities, 3 different higher education institutions. I'm here now, and I've been here for quite a while, and I'm at a point where I'd like to just be set at one place. I'm a senior now. And I'm at I have a Master of Arts degree. I have a teaching credential that takes me through from kindergarten through sophomore level, university level, and I'm still at the very pretty big base level. And so this upping of the $3,000 increase to range for what we call a step level up really doesn't affect many of us, because you have to be at the very bottom round of the pay scale, and I'm like about $500 to $700 above that. That $3,000 I would not get.
And your colleague was saying it's an issue of living wages. Is that really an issue for the faculty here?
And we're saying cost of living, but it's living wages throughout the state of California. Obviously, that's a big issue across many industries. But we are the lowest paid in terms of, from my understanding, even across many of the other CSU campuses. San Francisco State faculty are paid very low. And I worked at a community college, and I made about 40% more. salary than I make here. And so I'm grateful to be here, and I can get by, but there's so many in the younger faculty. We laid off 300 people, 300
Are they coming back?
We don't know, and it's probably not. And unfortunately, the administration, they all got a 12 to 29% increase. So
That's kind of a slap in the face.
So and we're asking for 12%. That's what we're asking for a 12% raise, and we're asking to raise the bottom cap, salary cap, by $10,000, and then all of a sudden we hear, oh, it's going to be 5% for this year, retroactive to July. We had to fight for that, and then 5% again, maybe, but it's tied to the state budget. And the budget, where, like you said, the state is losing money, and so
The whole situation in California has got a lot of wealthy, all these billionaires. Yet it seems like the legislature, the governor Newsom, they're happy with the way things are structure-wise.
Well, when we had our one-day strike last month, our state assembly members showed up, and one of the San Francisco supervisors showed up, and when that's Assembly Member Phil Ting, when he was speaking, I guess he and I made eye contact, and he said, well, we gave I can't remember how much at that point, but they gave quite a bit of money to the CSU, we locked eyes as he was saying that, and I said, where is it? We're not seeing that. And so I understand that they're sitting on almost a $12 billion reserve, and we don't. And there was the California State Auditor did a study and a report in 2019 saying that at that point it was a $1.8 billion reserve in 2019.
It went up to $12 billion.
Yeah, over what, 6 years? 4 years.
The administration got a pay increase.
And the new president got makes $1 million. They get either housing or a housing alliance on top of their 6 figures. And
Any housing alliance for adjuncts?
There's no housing alliance, and it's annual. It's $60,000 up. Annual housing allowance.
I mean, it seems like it's the corporatization of the university.
That's been going on for years across. We see that with the UCs as well, and so we're just saying this is a public university. It should be for the public, and the public shouldn't. Yes, we should pay our tuition. The students should pay their tuition.
Why should there be tuition of thousands of dollars? When I was going here, $72 a semester.
It was 81 when I was here.
I mean, so why?
It was 81 a semester.
I mean, you got billionaires. Ting, by the way, there was a campaign to have a depletion oil tax to go to education. Texas has that. He said, I asked him about it. He said, well, you get the petition going.
Wow.
He wouldn't introduce it himself. So this is Ting.
That's it. Oh, interesting. Because I was feeling a little bit better about him when I saw him in December. But so maybe that's not good. That's not good. So again, I think I think if we say they're out of touch, that's just giving them a get out of jail free pass. And I just really feel that it is against the rich and the poor. And there's been such an attack on education for the last 40 years. And it's gotten harder and harder and harder. So naturally, public education is in the forefront and said, oh, if you make it affordable, too many people will get educated. So there seems to be a strong move against education. And I said that at 8 years of age. I am now a senior. When I was 8 years old in the 3rd grade, I came home and said to my parents, this country doesn't care about education. And sadly, it seems that's still the case.
We know education is dangerous. That's why they didn't allow slaves to read. That's why they went after Paulo Freire. I mean, we know once you get people thinking, that's dangerous to get people thinking. And the attack on education, I remember Agnew and the eggheads, there's a hostility in the United States against education. But it's education that's most important in most countries to make sure that they move forward and that they have the best thinkers and the best scientists and the best, poets and so it's sad that in the United States that there's this hostility towards education.
Well, education workers can change that, couldn't they? If all of them united?
No, because yes.
Well, they did during the 60s. There were at this campus and throughout California, education workers, staff, community were together, and that's forced the governor and took on Reagan at that time.
I think that's what's happening now, that more and more teachers are joining unions, because for years there was no movement to join unions. I mean, I've seen this in the past 5-6 years, that there's been a much larger movement for teachers to join unions, especially at the university level. We were always above it. I mean, well, I don't need a union, and I've been teaching for 50 years. I have 2 masters and a doctorate degree. I've taught all over the world. And so I've seen it change, and you're right, it shifted from focus on education to focus on marketing and money. And the focus was, instead of paying teachers, we're going to pay administrators, or pay marketing material. We do that as well. So I think there is a greater understanding that there's a need to unionize in order to take hold and respect our teachers. And I think that's happening more and more, that especially at the university level. And it's going to have to happen more, because there's been such a backlash. They've been going after university teachers and our educational institutions. They have no idea what's going on here. They have no idea. And they make all these ridiculous assumptions, and my thing is, what's wrong with teaching human rights?
Well, the administrators who are making a lot of money, the top administrators and millions of dollars, it seems like they continue to get their salaries, and they're taken off the top.
Yes, I mean,
the whole structure of the state college system.
Isn't it true in all businesses? Isn't it true in every? I mean, look at the airlines. Isn't it the top people, but the stewardesses or stewards are not making it? I mean, isn't this true, like how business works? And when they've shifted from education now being a business, and that's why all of a sudden you started teaching classes of 15, which was acceptable to. She was telling me that she's got 60 in a class. That's outlandish. You can't teach 60 people in a class. It's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Can you?
They're shortchanging the students.
Absolutely. At a time when the students need a lot of help, because they're not all that, I hate to be perfectly honest, they're not as responsible as they used to be. They don't read as much, they don't do the work as well, they need the support and help, and they need the counseling to say, hey, look, you got to do this, and so it's kind of crazy, but I'm thrilled as an old teacher about ready to retire that the younger people and that the unions are coming together, and they are fighting now for their rights and the rights of our students. All of us care more about our students. We wouldn't be doing this, because trust me, we could all make a lot more money doing other things in business. For sure, for sure, it's not the money. You know what I mean? It's not the money. I could have made hundreds of thousands more than I did teaching, but you know what? I like to teach. I like to help kids and help the universe. I really feel like I'm making a difference. And hopefully today they've made a difference.